Rebound and rebuild.
In life, you don't lose, you learn.
Every one of us has potential. 100%.
The winner is... Here we go, rebound and rebuild.
Well, welcome to another Rebound and Rebuild. I am your host, or one of your hosts, Carlos Flores, and I'm here with my co-host.
My man, that's Coach Charles.
Coach Charles right there. We're so excited for today's podcast and episode.
I'm definitely excited.
We have a tremendous guest, a beast of a guest. I'm so excited.
A beauty of a guest at the same time.
That's true. A beauty. And remember, this podcast, we started it as a podcast for men by men,
right?
Which now we have evolved to a podcast for all.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's so surprising how many women have actually reached out, sent us, you know, it's everything. And now we're, you know,
reaching a lot of people. There was a woman that she approached me. She goes, I wanted to hear your podcast and see what it was you were telling my husband. And she goes, but after listening to it, I found myself hooked. So I'm looking and listening every week.
No, yeah, it's been amazing to hear all your feedback. So if you do like the podcast, and again, obviously you do because you're watching it, but if this is your first time and you like us, why don't you give us a rating? Let us know how we're doing. Let us know if you like it. If there's things that like we need to touch on or, you know, topics that you'd like to listen to, do it. I mean, we listen to you guys all the time. We just got a request from one of our viewers on YouTube. I don't know his name, but his at name or hashtag or name is Nitro something.
Right.
So my man, we're listening to you. We will touch upon that topic you want, but anybody else, send it over. We'll see what we can do. And again, we love to learn. We love to listen to things that are happening with you guys. So let us know what's going on.
Absolutely.
If there's any stories that, you know, can motivate us and motivate our listeners, we'd love to share them with our listeners as well. So anyway, there's all the information on your screen. Get in touch with us. Let us know how we can serve you. So let's get to it.
Yeah, bro.
Charles, we have an amazing guest, like we said.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to leave it to you so you can tell our audience who she is.
Man, listen, I can't tell the world enough about who this woman is. In fact, I met this woman outside just a couple of days ago. Just kidding. This is my wife, man. This is the love of my life, the absolute inspiration. I say she's my Dora Milaje. She's the woman that's behind King T'Challa. She is so much more than a beautiful face. She's a warrior, a fighter. She is a prayer warrior. She's a gifted person in the prophetic. I'm telling you, you have no idea what I have the great honor of experiencing being this woman's husband. So yeah, that's my baby, Coach Yvana. Yes,
so
indeed.
we have, I guess, the wife, the one and only, Yvana Bailey.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome to Rebound and Rebuild.
Thank you.
So we're doing this. Yvana is the first female on our podcast.
Yes.
We're actually supposed to have both our wives.
No, we're so sad.
Carolina's not here because she's actually sick.
Yeah.
But we send her our prayers and our love.
Absolutely.
But Yvana is here. And for you guys don't know this, but Yvana and Carolina actually connected Charles and I, which we've actually talked about it before.
Yes.
They're actually BFFs, sisters from
other
misters. And
Okay.
all of the above, encouragers, like honestly, they're partners in crime.
And they're strong.
And they're working on their own ventures and own businesses, but also a combined effort as well. So we're very proud of them. So I'm going to interview Yvonne and Charles. So they're on the hot seat today, but then you'll listen to Charles put Carolina and myself on the hot seat.
Oh, yeah.
Well. So anyway, guys, let's do this.
Let's do it, man.
As we, you know, talk about rebounding and rebuilding, and that's been kind of, you know, obviously the theme of our show, the slogan of our show, the title of our show.
Yeah, that's right.
Many times we talk about how we do it individually as men and women, how we rebound and rebuild. But sometimes, you know, there's a thing where it's like, there's a combination when it's a marriage, when it's a collab. You know? And it's also with partners, you know.
That's right.
It could be, you know,
Still
business partners and whatnot. It's still a relationship, which many times you treat it as a marriage.
That is absolutely right.
Because you really find out the truth, the ugly, the reality.
And if it doesn't work out, there's a lot of paperwork involved to get that thing separated.
So you guys have inspired Carolina and myself in so many levels, in so many different ways for so many years. And I'm sure you've inspired so many others as well, because with all your brands and your businesses. Right. So it hasn't always been that way though.
Right.
You know, there has been the times where the beginnings and how you started and whatnot. And we don't want to go to like, you know, the meeting of like, we're not talking about marriage.
Right.
We're talking about business and entrepreneurship.
Right. As a married couple, so to speak.
How did it start for you guys together?
Yeah. Well, for us, if you remember, my wife and I, her pursuits for Olympic glory was one of the things that really paired us. And I was a track and field champion, an athlete, and she had, you know, a promising opportunity to make a step to that next level. And so for me, I had to make a decision whether I wanted to stay in the corporate world or step out, because we lived in totally different states, to be with her and to support her. So that I would say would be the true beginning of where our entrepreneurial ventures began. But it wasn't immediate. No. Do you remember our first year of marriage? And we were excited. We moved in Orlando.
Yes,
yeah, man. But we were trying to figure out our lives at that point.
Very young.
Yeah, very young. But I also think for many people listening, we didn't do what other people did. Remember, we didn't both jump in there with 2 careers.
No, we did not.
Right.
We did not. I had just finished my master's.
That's right.
And you had just moved from corporate. And we spent that first year, honestly, building the foundation of communication and marriage together.
Yes.
And kind of discovering what it is that we want to do.
Right.
And that was very important to us, was building that foundation very early.
That's right.
And I remember we did Marriage on the Rock. We did a couple of courses.
Shout out to Marriage on the Rock.
Oh,
That's an incredible course.
Absolutely.
Married couple.
Marriage on the Rocks.
You did too.
Yo, it is incredible.
Not Marriage on the Rocks.
Yeah, Marriage on the Rock.
Is that on the Rock? Oh, okay.
The foundation.
I always call it Marriage on the Rocks.
Yeah,
no, sir. Now I see what that
means. But for us, that was important. And I think that, honestly, if anyone is listening, that's the foundation of what it meant for both of us and why we're so strong as a couple and why we were able to help each other discover these passions and purposes and make brands out of them. Right. Because instead of focusing on our money or focusing on those brands early, we focused on each other first.
Right. That's right. And the
before we did anything else.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man.
No, it's it's so funny because now that we're talking about marriage and partnerships, even outside of marriage, it's so important to lay a foundation.
That is absolutely correct.
Because a business can make you or break you.
Absolutely.
And I've heard countless stories of business partners who lost their relationship, who went bankrupt, who one stole from the other. It's just chaos after chaos. And it's so fundamental with any business. When you start, make sure that the foundation is laid hard, solid.
That's right.
So when storms come or whatever, you're just strong.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why I did this, but
that's strong, man. It was your right hand. That's
I've been working out.
All right, bro. I see the biceps, son.
Dude, I'm telling you, I've been working out for a week.
Well, to that point, Carlos, you're absolutely correct. And many people don't understand the laying of the foundation and what the foundation's for. So what you said ties into the next points that we were talking about. We've had some tough times as business owners. We've had tough times as a married couple, not between the two of us, but having to walk through those periods of what are we going to do because this door has closed or this thing has come and gone?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. It was very difficult at times.
Sure.
And I think if we didn't have the foundation, it could have crumbled us.
Absolutely.
But we were so intentional. And hopefully another time we can talk about what laying that foundation looks like because not a lot of people know what that looks like. Well, how do I lay some structure that will actually be permanent, in my life and be able to carry me through the storm and throughout the storm, to be honest. But we know that our source is God. That's the source of our relationship and our foundation. And it's proven the test. He has always proven us. Yeah.
May I ask you, how long did it take for you guys to lay that foundation?
Well, I think...
we both decided to answer these questions.
Oh my gosh.
Go ahead.
I know for a fact very early that the vision was laid for who we are and what we are to become.
Right. When we were
dating. When we were dating, very early. And very early, I knew that Charles was going to be my husband. And I got a very specific vision about him and matrimony, to be honest.
I knew she was my wife the moment I met her. I kid you not. And I
So
always
love
tell
at
the
first
story.
sight.
No, not at all.
The craziest thing is when we first
that crazy
no,
woman?
no, when we first met, there's a story behind it, but we'll tell another day. But anyway, it was a chance meeting. She was behind me, and then we ended up talking because we ran track and field. That's how we met.
Athletics.
And very, very, very short. We were talking that whole track meet because track meets last like 30
years.
days, 30 months, whatever it is.
Long time.
And that's one meet. No.
Right.
And so we had so much time to connect that
yeah.
we were like, man, there's something unique about this person. But I knew when she left the track meet. So I didn't get her information. I'm all cool, you know. I'm trying to be,
of course, yeah.
you know, I mean, I'm not trying to be all aggressive. You know what I mean? I have no trouble talking to women. No, seriously, for real, that was my deal. But this one was different, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I had these stupid cards, bro. I was a senior, and I had these clear cards with my name on it, and it had the people business on there. Like I didn't have a job. Like, dude, like what are you doing? Nobody knows what that is. But I was too afraid to give her my information or to get hers.
Gotcha.
And she turned around and left. And I said, I just let the greatest thing I ever met turn around and walk away from me.
Wow.
Now, there's a story of how we reconnected, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because what you wanted to ask us about is even how we got to our vision of brands.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, originally, when we left, we had to sit down with each other. And as we got to discover each other more and more, we discovered passions.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%.
Not just things that we wanted to do, but things that we actually innately do.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And must fulfill.
Right. And so we began with fitness.
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
So you want to talk a little bit about how that started? Because it was different.
It was different.
So just so you guys know, you guys have one of their multiple businesses is M3
3B Fitness and Performance.
Fitness and Performance.
Yes.
Of course, I'm not a client of theirs. I can't afford them. You know? They're amazingly expensive, but they're great.
Well, we're great at what we do.
So this business didn't start
No.
until much later.
Just maybe a year.
A year.
I would
In
give it a
Orlando
year.
it started, yes.
Because we wanted to see.
Was that the first one?
That was
Yes,
the first
that's
one.
the first one.
We wanted to see if it would actually work. So what we did is we went to box gyms. And that was a strange situation. So I started in Bally Fitness.
Right there.
Do you remember Bally Fitness, dude?
On
Oh
Kirkman?
my
Do you
God.
remember where the Shooters World is
I
now?
actually went once.
Gosh.
Didn't they do like free pizza on some?
No, that's the other gym that we don't talk about. Because you shouldn't give pizza at a gym.
Hey,
That's actually why I would go to the gym for the pizza.
Well, that's a smart marketing.
telling
I would
Yes.
literally run for a mile and have like 3 slices.
Oh
of
my
pizza.
God.
3. You know how many
All right.
calories?
Whatever.
I'm done.
Anyway.
I'm done.
So
Moving
that
back.
we
Okay,
went
yeah,
to the
moving
box gyms, and so I started there, and I wanted to get a feel for what it was like to be in that environment because I had coached people before, kind of like on the side, and of course I was coaching her for her Olympic dreams, and we had done that for years.
Right.
So now it was like, how do we build this into something else? And so we started kind of like venturing out, training clients in their like apartment complexes, in their homes. Yep, that's right. You had clients in different places around here.
Claremont,
and that was when we were like,
So
oh,
you
this
were
could be
personal
legitimate.
trainers.
Yeah,
Yes,
just
and
personal
concierge
trainers.
personal trainers at that. We would come to you and offer our services.
Was that something very common at that time?
No, absolutely not.
So you
I
guys,
don't think so.
You guys were at the cusp of the beginning.
Yes, I believe so. Because a lot of people were in the box gyms at
Of
this point in
course, of
time.
course.
And the fitness boom was just starting to really happen in this area, I should say. So we were kind of like figuring it out for ourselves as they were trying to figure it out too. You know what I mean?
Right. And what worked best for us as well,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah. And it's hard to find facilities where you can train people. So that was our first like introduction is can we go to where they are? Can we travel with things?
Yeah.
And then how, you know, like, is this really making us money?
That's right.
Right.
And then we establish a business.
Right.
Did you guys, once you began your fitness company, when was the first wall that you hit that could be considered we failed at this, or we actually didn't know what we were doing? And
there's a lot of that.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, she's having me answer.
Go ahead.
I don't think
Because
she's
I'm
ever
gonna
had a
tell
moment.
you.
Right?
No,
She's
no, no.
like, I never had a moment where it didn't work for me. No, just
not at
teasing.
all,
I'm
not at
teasing.
all.
But I guess that's an individual question, to be honest. Because together, we didn't really approach it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Because even though we are working together, we didn't train our clients together.
Right. Yeah.
So you're running two businesses under one umbrella,
Right.
even though it's one brand. But she attracts a certain type of clientele, and I typically attract a certain type of clientele.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it was the struggle of looking at how many I could fit in a day, right? Because I still was trading time for money,
Yeah.
which to some degree I still do.
Yeah.
But also whether or not it was meeting what we really needed. I think the block that came from me had nothing to do with the business, but more with the personal side of things, right? Because we had our first apartment together. Yeah. We lived in a place that wasn't so great. Mm-hmm. You know, we're getting our brand new start as a married couple. Mm-hmm. And we're like, we have to get out of this place because it was like running down and the management was horrible, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the business side was one thing, but the personal decisions that could affect your business were the things that I struggle with the most, because I'm trying to be a brand new husband and provider and encourager and inspirer.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. And that is not just all of it. Right. I believe that for me, I was still in pursuit of an Olympic dream, which requires you to be like, I don't know, 12 hours committed. A day in a sense, you know, mentally, physically, recovery as well. Yes. And so I was literally going to clients' houses with ice packs on my legs, trying to unwrap the saran wrap and get out of there. It was a lot. It was a lot trying to manage. I was hustling and grinding for my dream and what I thought I was destined to do. Yeah. So that took a strain because it was like constantly trying to figure out the balance, you know? Balance is really hard.
Yes. And you still had to make time for yourselves.
Absolutely. Without a shadow of a doubt.
Although communication, like we excessively communicate on purpose. And I think that fueled our day. It's like, hey babe, I'm going through this. What do you think? Well, try this. And it was constantly leaning on each other in the moments that we needed it, which is what we're used to doing anyway with our foundation. So I think that's really important to know, is that was the constant variable in everything that we did.
You know, when you think about partners and businesses, and in this case, you know, a couple, a married couple, there's individualities where some are higher than others, some are better than others. You know, you and I have different strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
When it came to you guys, was there a side that was like, oh, Charles was actually the one carrying the business, or was it actually Yvana carrying the business and there was some sort of like jealousy or?
So we're very specific when it comes to jealousy.
Yes.
We don't allow our hearts to go intentional.
I thought jealousy was just jealousy.
No, it's not.
It's not.
And even that question, even think about it, for you asking that question, that is a specific form of jealousy, because that's interspousal.
Yes.
And that's totally different than like you see someone that has something you want and you're jealous of their achievement.
Right.
But go ahead, you finish your answer. Great question.
I'm trying to remember my answer, but I do know that it's what you let in that can dictate how you think, how you approach things. And I know that he is strong at a lot of things. Right. I mean, he's amazing. Yeah. And I utilize his strengths and I learn from them. Yeah, so I think early on, I eliminated pride because, there's things that, of course, he could do better. And I'm like, okay, I wish I could do that great and smooth and effortlessly. But then I say, well, as opposed to trying to compete against my partner, which the world's already competing. Like there's a whole competition. We would always say that. I mean, why would I fight him? I need to learn from him, and I want to be a part of what he knows and what he does seamlessly. And I want to adapt that. And so that's what I did. And I continue to do that. I'm like, babe, excuse me, help me understand the scripture. Babe, help me understand what can make marketing Yeah, absolutely. And I just think that that's one way of building more blocks together that don't have anything to do with jealousy, but have a lot more to do with the security in one another. You know, because God created him the way he did, and God created me the way he did as well. So just blending that together and eliminating pride very early on in marriage, in relationship, in business partners too.
And she's being honest. She's not just saying that for the camera. That's 100% transparency because it's true. We never, and I'm glad you asked that, because honestly, we have not ever experienced an inter-jealousy between each other.
Right.
We've always appreciated each other's strengths.
Right.
But we've always been honest with our own and each other's weaknesses.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And that's what has helped us to make it through some of the storms we weathered, not just in business, but even in the marriage that we have, which is why it's so great. People see us, and I laugh about this because there are people who post on Instagram the pictures of what they think they look like, and if you really knew them, that's not the relationship.
Like
our
reality
relationship is better. Our relationship is better than what you see on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I think if we asked you honestly, what would you say? From you knowing us all these years.
Oh, your guys's?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
100%.
One of the things that we really love about Charles and Yvana is the transparency of who they are.
Yeah.
They're the same separately, together. Like their language is the same. They communicate the same. Like it's honestly, it's cool.
We appreciate that, man. We appreciate that. Yeah.
So, which is amazing to hear, like the jealousy factor, because you hear many business partners, even like coming to mind right now, it's just Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak who like founded Apple,
right,
and then Steve Jobs kind of catapulted, and then went on, and just made Apple what it is now.
True.
May him rest in peace.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
Right.
It's not easy to have a business and have a partner, and me and my wife do many businesses together, and it's hard because our mindsets are so different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to hear that, like, even in jealousy, there's a way to like
absolutely
move out of it.
It's intentional. Go ahead.
I was going to say that jealousy is always going to be at the door. Whatever the enemy is, it's always waiting for an opportunity. I like to eliminate and then create space.
Yes.
So if I'm eliminating the things that I know are going to be potentially hazardous to my mind, to my well-being, I'm going to try to put all my efforts into that. And then I'm going to create a new space to where I say, you know what, humility needs to come through this door, because you know what, he's way better at this than I am. Who am I going to front? I don't have that together. So let me ask him. And he always strengthens me. And he never meets me with opposition. He never meets me with, oh, you got it. It's sometimes like in track and field, it was always like that. Yeah. You got it, babe. Get over it.
Run for you.
Rough love.
That was rough.
It's coaching.
Athletics was rough. Coach, athlete, husband, wife. That was pretty rough. But he always met me with grace, and he met me with, okay, maybe she doesn't have the skill set, but here I am as her leader as well, and we're in a marriage, so I'm going to help strengthen that. And I loved it. And I loved feeling humbled. As weird as that felt, I loved it because I knew that there are things in me that do need shaping. They do need some sharpening, and they also need some pruning. So,
you know what's unique about everything you're asking and she's saying, and there are points to this to be made for our listeners. If I had a business idea and I brought it to her, I was never met with, oh, that's stupid and it's not going to work. Like we've been talking about in other shows that we've experienced. Mm-hmm. She would say to me, well, if you feel that there's really something in your heart, first thing, ask God, talk to the Lord.
Always.
Then we would actually pray about it and sincerely say we're giving our honest intent. Intention is very big.
That's right.
And then she would say, well, you got it. Go for it. Right? Well, I mean, what do we have to lose?
That's right.
But then at the very end of it all is you don't do it and leave your partner behind.
Right.
Anytime I had a business idea, or even if she's had one and we brought it to one another, we don't just go off and do it on our own.
Right.
We want this person to be fully integrated into what's happening. So Yvana, I literally would bring her into the business before she really wanted to become a personal trainer.
Right.
She used to always tell me, she said, you know how this works in our marriage. God will open up a door for you, maybe release you in this direction.
It's been the pattern.
And then you will come to me and say, hey, listen, this is the path I took to do this. Come along.
Right.
And she starts where I'm at, as opposed to having to rebuild from the bottom.
That's true. That's very true.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about marriages, business, entrepreneurs, female, male. In reality, whatever business you open solo, individually, the first partner is your spouse.
100%.
Like, I'm just thinking about, like, if you don't have your spouse, or, I mean, again, we're talking about marriage,
right, in the
entrepreneurs
context.
in marriage.
Correct.
It's like you really like almost lost that first, wave kind of thing.
Right.
So it's so important and so beautiful to see like that strength and spousal support.
Yes,
is what carries you forward.
Yes, sir.
That's all we got.
Have you ever read any books by Napoleon Hill?
No.
And for all of you who are listening, Napoleon Hill is one of the most brilliant minds in the literary works of success.
Right.
He's like the godfather, so to speak. And there's a long story about how he was introduced to this, but he was challenged to give 20 years of his life. I think it was by Ford or Dale Carnegie, one of the two, and said, I want you to commit to learning the secrets of success. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to all my connects, the most wealthy men in the existence of history outside of the ones that we know in the past history. But at the time, And he said, I'm going to allow you access, and I want you to be able to give this information to the world, so to speak. And in one of his teachings, one of the secrets to success is exactly what you said. He said, similar to what you and I talk about, behind every great man or beside every great man is an even greater woman. Okay. Right? So he goes back and he says, if you look at the richest men in the world, most of them have a woman who was partnered with them, their spouse, someone significant, but they are the source in many ways of their success. Wow. And he was saying, if you don't have that, he called it the mastermind, because you are unlocking the potential of two people for one vision. Right. And we are electrical beings. We're spirits in a body. This is not our real form. Right. So if my mind is set to something and I partner with someone whose mind is set on seeing my mind and being set on that thing succeed, I'm going to succeed much faster. Yeah. And I'm going to have greater clarity, thought, and insight because I'm sharing a mind. As opposed to depending only on my own.
That's right. That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
And so you're right. If you do not have that, you have missed one of the first keys of success. And if you are ignoring it, you're missing it, and it's your fault because your pride is keeping you from the success that you actually should be having.
That's right.
And you think about it, because we live such in an era that women have now been given a platform.
Absolutely.
Where our mother's generations
totally different.
Was different.
Right. Understood.
Right.
My mom, like for example, my parents, my dad had a business. He's a carpenter. But never did he involve mom in it. And it's so funny because mom's very opinionative. Okay. And what he does is like, just go. Because they don't function like in the same way.
Wave. Okay. Yes.
You know, because she's like more chatty McGee and like, let's go, move. Right. Where he's like more pensive and like, let me analyze, measure twice. What's that phrase? Measure twice, cut once. Yes. You know, that sort of thing. But anyway, it was different.
Right.
And I think now it's like women are giving that chance. And I think even husbands are understanding that.
Incorporating.
Like, we're equal. Like we are
that's right.
Co-together, like co-called.
That's right.
And we always have been.
And we always have been.
And that's a question too. When did that change? How did that change?
Yeah.
And recognize that societally, that was the influence.
Yeah.
Before all that, those constructs came into play, there were heavily matriarchal societies that still exalted a man as king, but was dependent upon the mind, the emotion, intellect of this women to rule. When you look at the game of chess, we talk about that all the time. It is a long-standing example of the way it was always meant to be. So something got in the way of that. We as people and as men, especially if you're married, have to recognize that if you're the king on the chessboard, be wise enough to give your woman the liberty to move and speak.
That's right. That's right.
And then you take into consideration, because ultimately the decision's up to you.
Right.
But you can make it with her or without her.
Right.
And going back to chess, the power the queen has.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And if you think about it, the queen moves in any way, wherever she wants, where the king can't.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's like, realize.
That's right.
So anyway, going back to your business.
Yes.
You had your fitness company.
Yes.
And as years went by, you started other ventures.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of expanded. So some of our ventures expanded. They were just expansions of what we were already doing, like partnering and reaching out for mentors, which helped us along the way, and advisors who can be on our advisory team to offer better services. So it was a little bit of expansion. So we started doing clinical things as opposed to just personal training.
Right.
We educated ourselves and became more specialized, which of course raised our revenue, raised our price and our ask.
That means you need 3 master degrees.
You don't need it, but I will say it doesn't hurt because they do bring credibility. Don't let anyone in the world tell you anything different. Right. Exactly. The whole world is lying to you. They don't want you to go educate yourself because you'll be empowered and you will have the right to request what you know you
what's
deserve.
Yours, exactly.
But that's just my 2 cents on that. And then outside of it, then we started trying other things. So the next venture and our biggest venture has been Aspire Higher,
right?
Which is where we actually start inspiring and working with professional athletes athletes outside of sport and entrepreneurs.
That's right.
Because we really want people to define their propulsive purpose, because a lot of people have the platform and miss the purpose behind their platform.
That's right.
So how do you find that?
Yeah.
So we saw that was a major need.
Right.
And so we knew that through our experiences and through what God had put on the inside of us, that would allow us to give that to them, because we're initially trying to accelerate their life, their business, and the whole culture of their sport.
That's right.
Because that's what the world is looking for.
That's
exactly. Right. Yvana, I know that you, going back to your Olympic dream and training and working very hard, obviously, with your partner, husband, business partner, coach here, you went through a lot of, let's just say, pitfalls.
Tribulations and trials. Absolutely.
And a lot of what this podcast is about is rebounding from that pit.
That's right.
That you were in. Charles used this amazing story about a donkey fell in a pit, and then they were going to kill him, and then he found a way out.
Okay.
He climbed on the dirt that they were throwing on.
I actually use that analogy so many times. It's actually crazy.
Great analogy.
Wow.
And in some ways, you were in a pit.
Yes.
And you got yourself out.
I did.
Obviously, with the help of someone.
Yes, the Lord first and foremost.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also by yourself.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about, to those that are listeners, so we can get to know a little bit more of you.
Yes.
Okay. So in 2016, that was one of the hardest years I've ever gone through in my life. And in 2016, I was, at the climactic part of my career. I had become a national champion for the country I was representing. Everything was on the up and up. And there's nothing worse. This could be for the mom, for the business owner. This could be for anyone. It applies to anything. There is nothing worse in life than to be blindsided by something traumatic. That shook me. It forced me into a pit that I wasn't sure of why I was in that pit. I had done everything right. I had tried. I had worked very hard on everything that we've done. And yet it still wasn't enough. So an accident actually ended my career, and it was a very traumatic accident. And throughout that time, I started to question, well, what am I going to do now? I think a lot of the times when trauma hits people, we don't understand what your identity is more of. So my eyes were locked on a vision. My eyes were locked on that destiny. I'm destined to fulfill this one thing I wanted so bad since the 3rd grade. And in my heart, I just knew that that's how it's going to end. I'm going to make it to the Olympics. My hands are going to be raised up. I'm going to have a gold medal. And, ever since 3rd grade, it finally will come to pass.
Carlos would be packing your bags.
Carlos would be packing my bags, doing my documentary. Like it's it's done. But when things don't happen your way and they wound you so deeply that you start questioning God and you start questioning yourself and you start questioning all the things around you, that's when you really do have a moment where I actually respect the moment of the pit. I respect the moment of the valley because I've grown in it.
Great. Respect the moment of the pit. Which might be the darkest moment in anybody's life.
Absolutely.
Yet you have to respect it.
That's right.
Respect it.
That's
Isn't it crazy?
It is. It is. And it's very scary.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I was in my pit, it was very lonely. That's the first time I've ever been through a real depression.
That was the first time I'd ever seen it.
Yes. And it was deep. It was like, I usually am vivacious and fun, but there was no joy in me in that moment. And it scared me because I had worked for something and it was gone. Like it's not even like I can come back into this event. This is hurdles we're talking about. It's not like a straight out, and I learned through the sadness, despondency, and traumatic time that there was a moment, a glimpse of hope.
Yeah.
Only because I was willing to silence myself and listen in the dark.
Yeah.
And there's a sound, I don't know if you've ever been in like pitch dark. There's a real sound. It might be really eerie, but I started to lean into that because sometimes when you're going through depression, you're already leaning into the dark. But this time, let's be honest, but this time there was a real darkness and a quietness, but it was a voice speaking through it.
Okay.
And that voice sounded like hope, and it sounded like a new promise, and it sounded like a consolation of, I'm with you. I was with you every day when you trained. I was with you when the accident happened. I was with you when you fell. And I'm not going to leave you. So what do you want to do? And for a long time, I never understood my option. I never understood that I have an option to do something. So what do I want to do?
Yeah.
And it's hard when you don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. A lot of people post-COVID, they don't know what they wanted to do anymore. Their business failed. Life changed. Businesses didn't start. Like, it's like, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
But that voice for me back in 2016 was, well, I can show you if you trust me.
That's right.
And I'm like, trust you? But how can I trust you when I don't see any steps?
Right.
How can I trust you when the steps literally, it felt like a carpet just was ripped underneath me? And I think for the viewers, when you're in that moment in life, when you don't hear anything, there's still a sound. And you have to be really quiet. You have to quiet yourself to be able to hear it. And it was in that moment that my whole year transformed. I was willing to go through the rehab that I went through physically. I was broken. There were things happening. It was a hot mess. And then I was willing to go through psychological work where sometimes you really can't make it out, but you have to rely that God has strengthened other people clinically to help you. So I went through a therapist, for just the athletic. It was so funny. I went there for athletic depression and it wasn't even like that. It was the revelation of Yvana. So that was your life, but what do you want to do next? Like, what is your life more made up of, you know? And it was in those defining moments that God spoke. And he said, are you willing to sacrifice what you are holding on so tight for the big thing that I have for you? And there's an illustration where there's a little girl that has this little teddy bear, and she's like, he crept down to her level because he always meets us at our level. Crept down to her level, and he's like, give me the teddy bear. And she's like holding it tight, like, no. And he has this huge, like, stuffed animal teddy bear from the carnivals behind him.
But she can't see it.
But she can't see it. And that's how I felt. I couldn't see. If I sacrificed the Olympic dream, my athletic life, what do I do next?
Yeah.
I'm like, I guess it's easier from the outside because you're like, what wouldn't you do next?
Right.
You can help other people. I miss family reunions. I miss friendship gatherings. I think I missed somebody's birthday in your family. I don't know. Yeah. But I try to be there though. But but it's one of those things where God was like, let me just show you.
Yes.
And he did. And he did. And all of a sudden we started going into film and entertainment industry. And that, wow, that is a huge business in itself.
Which came
Show
out
business.
of
that.
a pit.
The pit.
Out of the
A
pit.
business was birthed.
That's
out
right.
of the pit.
Out of the pit.
An identity was refined, restored,
Renewed.
and reshaped.
Come on now.
Come on, all of that in the pit. I didn't know what I was looking like.
Yeah.
He saw me every day. He saw me every day. Tears, anger, frustration. And it is okay to be angry with the Lord. That's my friend. That's my best friend.
That's right.
So I'm going to talk to him like I talk to you.
Yes.
And he understood that.
Now, it's easier said than done.
Understood.
You're obviously way out of that pit, you've left that behind.
Sure.
What would you tell the listener who's actually in there right now and cannot, for the life of him, find the way out? And just feels like he crawls and he falls back in, and life is just not fair, or it seems not fair.
Right.
Well, first, I would tell them to respect the moment. If they're discouraged, if they're disappointed, if they're in a grieving period, respect that. I respected it so much. I was raised in a culture even where I didn't see crying a lot. It was always hold your strength. It was like, don't let them see you sweat. Don't cry. Even when I felt like crying, I just held it together because that's what I was taught, She
was like Sherlock Holmes. You remember the comedy? The dude cried and then he sucked it all the way back.
Get back in there.
It takes a lot of strength to suck things. But I learned to give myself grace. And one of my best friends, she taught me that. Give yourself grace in the pit. Understand the moment is okay. It is okay to be human. It is okay to feel in that pit, your sorrow, all that, despair. But don't forsake the moment of transition. The moment of transition can come through a still voice. It can come with a still strength. All of a sudden, you might see a little bit of light don't be afraid with whatever little strength you might have. Don't be afraid to approach it and approach it with a vigor and intensity that says, I'm going to try. That's it. And I think some people don't allow themselves enough grace to even try again.
Yeah.
So for the one that is waiting, for the one that is disappointed, for the one that is in that pit.
Can you say that again?
Yes.
For the one?
For the one that is waiting, for the one that is disappointed, for the one that's going through trauma right now. Respect the moment. Respect the fear, respect the despondency, whatever you're going through. And then find a way to be still in it because that stillness still speaks.
Right.
And then climb to whatever strength you have, move out of it, whatever that looks like. And if you don't pray, I would suggest going in just speaking. There's no real format for prayer. The Bible doesn't even list that in
outside
sense,
of
except for that Our Father. I was going to get there.
Right.
Our Father. He's always on it. But
isn't he annoying?
No.
He annoys me. He annoys me. He doesn't let me be.
Carlos.
He just wants to make sure I'm on it.
But I love you for that, man. I love you.
That's it. But in that same respect, give yourself the grace. Know the moment. It's really just a moment, and you will make it through. But it's a choice, and I think that was the hardest thing, was knowing that my freedom, my next step, was a choice. But sometimes that darkness feels really comfortable. I don't know how to express. It's real comfortable to not do. Right. It's real comfortable to be grieving. It's comfortable.
And it's so funny because we talked about, man, people have so much potential.
Yes. Right.
But they're comfortable in that
pit, in that sorrow, or whatever it is.
And the pit can be like, oh, you're 9 to 5, you have your regular job, you collect your paycheck every week, and you're comfortable.
That's right.
But it's like,
but there's so much
you're
more
not
in
meant
you,
to just be going around.
That's right.
And
That's
around
right.
and around.
And it's nothing wrong with have that, and
then
do the thing that you really feel is on the inside of you.
That's right. And you can feel the void.
It is very
I
true.
haven't met anyone.
I think a lot of people know.
They do know.
Even when they're just going around, they know they're not happy.
You ever,
they know there's something
else.
Right.
But the fear, the crippling, the
lack of confidence,
the noise,
or the pain, like you said,
pain can be so traumatic it debilitates the mind, will, soul, and emotions.
Which we forget that pain is oftentimes our greatest clue into our purpose.
Yeah.
And sometimes people ask, why does God let bad things happen to good people? Well, there's a couple answers to that. And I love that question, first of all.
Multifold.
One, because God is omnipresent, he's omniscient. So they're like, you know everything, you see everything. Why'd you let it happen? Well, he's like, well, here's the thing. Let me ask you a question. If I intervened and I changed the circumstance for you, then I would be hated for the fact that I'm always sticking my hand in things when you had it and you told me you had it under control.
Right.
But at the moment that I don't do something, now I'm at fault because I didn't stop the thing that I told you months ago or weeks ago, or gave you even an insight about this person, place, or thing. And you're like, they're fine. Oh, this will be great. Oh, this will never crash. Oh, this will... And it happens. So he loses either way. So the best way that he can be God is be there and be there for you.
Exactly.
Right.
When no one else is there, he's still there. So that's what I say to that. But on top of it is knowing that your pain is oftentimes trying to point you in a direction that oftentimes we're resisting. Right? We don't want to go that way because it's like, well, if I touch on this, I relive the hurt. Yes, but every time you relive the hurt and you express how you overcame it, someone else gets out of their hurt.
That's right.
Or someone takes that advice and says, you know what? I know that was hard for you to share and even go through. But I'm going through that too. And your story gave me the inspiration and the confidence I needed to know that it's possible to get out.
That's right.
You know how many 501c3s and organizations that actually really do good came out of someone else's pain?
Yeah.
Being that they grew up in an orphanage, they grew up in poverty, or they were molested or raped or abused as a child. And they said, I will never allow this to happen to another person. And that's what I think is the biggest answer. Sometimes God is saying is, you're mad at me for not allowing it to happen, but what have you done to prevent it from happening to anyone else? I gave you the purpose. And I always used to tell my wife, I said, sometimes I believe before we came here that there was a contract with God that we made and we're just not aware of it yet. He asked us if there was one thing on earth that you really wanted to accomplish, that you wanted to change, because I want you to know when I send you there, that place is fallen. This place is perfect. That place is fallen. So there's going to be a mission there. What would you want to do? And he says, now you sure? Because if you go this way, you're going to have to go through the door to get to the key. You're going to have to know that you have to go through hell like I did in order to get back here and have the keys to the kingdom.
Unlock it, yeah.
To unlock it for everyone else. Because he had to die in order for us to live, right?
That's right.
So are you willing to do that? Yes, sir, I am. We get here, we go through the pain. Why are you doing this to me? This is the one thing. This is the one thing. This is the one thing that you were created to do.
Yeah.
Quit looking at yourself and remember that this is for something greater than you. I am in no way condoning it.
Right.
But if you don't move, just like Martin Luther King says, if you don't say anything, you might as well be partnering with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's your silence.
That's right. That's right.
It's your silence and not acting that is allowing this to continue.
That's right.
That's the greatest harm to humanity.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And what I like about hearing from your stories, of your many businesses, how they were birthed, and it's like, it's part of life to know that, you make it, you break it, you win, you lose,
and you learn.
But it's the fact that you learn.
Yes.
And so many people don't actually learn.
That is true as well.
They keep the same way.
Yeah.
And I know as a husband, seeing your wife in a pit, did that make you want to let me get you out of there?
Of course.
Yeah. And were you allowed? Did you do it?
That is an interesting question. So one, we're still running businesses. We still have to make our bills, right? We still have to pay bills. And she's still trying to discover her identity outside of sport. She's a part of the business, but she wasn't 100% invested, so to speak, because she's trying to work through her own pain.
Right.
So one is keeping the focus on, this is still on us.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm right now carrying, that was the question you asked at the beginning. I'm still carrying the businesses at this point, right? But I was always there, and I'm always given access to my wife's heart because she knows she could trust me with that. She's even said that to me. The only person that I can trust with that. So I wanted to dig her out, and I would try my best to use things. And of course, I'm praying, I'm fasting, I'm worried, I'm stressed, I'm getting, sleepless nights too, because I don't want to see her go through this, because it wasn't the wife, it wasn't the woman, it wasn't the Yvana that I know.
That you married.
Well, no, she's still the woman that I married. And I hope that people get that point.
Right,
when you're married to someone, you ask, how about that? You vow to be there for them.
That's right.
No matter
what they're going through, and vice versa. So that's what I was given permission to do. That's why I almost said ask. So I was still there, still giving access, still doing that. But it was about, how can we find a way to move forward?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what can we do to move forward? And I knew that this was a hard death. But the thing is, you also have to give people their space to grieve.
That's right. That's right.
To grieve, yes.
You have to. It's not about, come on, pep yourself up, open up the blinds, let's go for a run. It's not like that. This woman's going through, and I know for someone who's not listening correctly, it may be misunderstood. So I'm asking your mercy and understanding when I say this. But for my wife, this was the equivalent of losing her baby. Yeah. My wife and I have not had children yet at this point. So this was the thing she had been nurturing and loving, growing, grooming, giving all of her time and energy to, and even making all sacrifices necessary for. And when it's gone, it is almost aborted or lost prematurely. Okay? So I'm not equivocating the two. What I'm saying is, it's just for the essence of what it may feel like.
To understand.
Now, that to be said, because she needed her space to grieve that loss. And to mourn that loss. And so that was the most important part for me.
It's so funny, athletes, and you can, obviously, not that I'm an athlete, but athletes to your level. And you hear tons of athletes after Olympics or prior. Depression, suicide, this and that. It's a different level than us. Mere mortals. Because again, but it's so funny, like, I'm seeing it as that, like, this was your baby.
Yes, absolutely.
And then when it gets stripped away,
just like that,
it's like, I'm a father now.
Yes.
I have 3 kids, and I think about, sometimes, like, Lord, please protect them. Like, I pray constantly for them, for if they're sick or this or that. So it's like, I can see that if one of them would be ripped apart or ripped from me, it'd kill me.
Right. And
that's it makes me understand.
Yes.
And that's the psychology of it.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
Yeah.
Because someone would be like, it's just a sport, get over it.
Of course.
Like, it's time.
Or dumb things like, we even had people come up, I remember I had a guy challenge me, was she good enough? Was she this and that? And I'm like, you don't realize this is what you deal with as a competitive athlete anyway. You're constantly asking yourself, am I good enough despite the numbers? You're constantly pushing for more even though you've done well.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the sport is not about, I'm better than I used to be. It's a competitive nature.
And I'll make mention to this. There are Olympians that have done well.
Absolutely.
There
Michael
are
Phelps.
Right.
Remember that
Depression.
season?
Of course we remember that season.
It was
Absolutely.
what was it? Beijing?
Yes.
Right after Beijing?
Yeah.
I mean, most decorative Olympian
and
of all
just
time.
had the fall right after that.
Right.
But anyway.
And I was going to say that there are athletes that have almost finished the race of their life.
Yes.
Almost won it. Hit a hurdle and fallen
tripped,
right
torn a muscle
before the finish line. Tore a muscle. I've hit hurdles. I've almost run on women's
You tore your rotator cuff.
I tore my rotator. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that has happened and that do happen in the risk of basketball, football, soccer, volleyball, sport, track and field, any sport. There's a risk. We put our bodies through the most. But here's the problem. You don't get the opportunity to see behind the scenes of when that race is finished and there's a new champion, what happens to the one that was left on the track?
Right.
What happens to the one that tore their Achilles? What happens to the one that now all of a sudden they can't make the Final Four?
They lose their contract.
They lose their contract. Okay, so you're talking money, financial loss. You're talking about an emotional grief. Yeah. You're talking about a physical loss. There's so many layers to this. And that's why I'm so grateful that that's why I'm so grateful in the moment that I learned I can't be the only one that feels like this. And I want to help people in that moment, in that pit forevermore to understand the purpose behind the pain, how to live for something greater. Your identity is not locked into who you only see yourself as an athlete, because a lot of those people that didn't get ESPY awards, they didn't get that medal, they still have to go on in life. And now what? What do you look for? A 9 to 5? How do you fulfill that purpose? Even my brother in the NFL, his season ended as well. We could have went a long time in our seasons, but when life happens, what do you do next? What identity do you hold next? And that's why God has showed me too. Yvana, I allowed you to go through that so you can have credibility to speak into other people's lives at the platform that you were on, at the rank that you had, at the level that you were on. If I tried to talk to an Olympian and I was just, I like track and field. It's
let
cool.
me help you.
Let me speak into your life. There's no credibility there. You don't know what I went through. You don't know what it's like to train 9 to 5 and then have to go through recovery. You don't
go to
know
work,
what that's like.
Because you have to support yourself.
And go to work, make an earning living. That's like a 12-hour day.
Like the worst.
The worst?
Absolutely. But yet we're glorified all the time for the basket made, for the crossing of the line, for the win.
Yeah.
Nobody really walks. There are a limited amount of people, especially the press, that walk through the journey and the lifestyle of people after they've been traumatically wounded by life in sport.
And that's what Aspire Higher is all about. And that was the point I was going to make. And I'm so glad she so eloquently made it. And I want to say this to our listeners, and this is very important. The question you asked earlier also is, what would we say to someone who's in that place? Because we've talked a lot around it and about it. One, recognize that there is more in you and your identity is not what you do, it's who you are.
That's right.
Two, invest in yourself. The reason we were able to make the moves we made is because when everyone told us no, we just found another door. Right. So even for me, when the coaching opportunity fell through, that was when I said, well, I got to do something. Let me get my first master's.
That's right.
When the person got rid of me in this one job, they told me, oh, you don't need another degree. I found a school that was able to give me a full scholarship, and I got my second master's.
That's right.
Those 3 degrees on this one side, those 2 degrees she has on her side have built our brands and businesses. Yeah. You have to recognize, because there's more to you, put more into you.
That's right.
You are a stock that is waiting to go to the moon.
That's right.
But you don't take all your investments out just because there's a dip or a what do we call it? A pit.
Right.
You put more into yourself.
That's right.
In those times.
That's right.
Because the more you invest, the better opportunity you have for growth.
That's right.
And then the last thing I'll say is, look at all the things that you are. So you talked a lot about a lot of our businesses being birthed out of our pits, so to speak.
Yeah. Right.
This woman was competing in track and field, and our hopes were track and field would open up doors like acting and modeling and sponsorships and all these things. So we thought the way to get it was going through that path, which it was. It just wasn't going to turn out the way that we thought.
That's right.
When that ended, all the things we had worked so hard for that we couldn't even get.
Sponsorships.
People were sending her products.
Partnerships.
Sending her clothes. They're still doing it today. Paying her money to promote their products.
Absolutely.
But it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a competitive track athlete today.
No, they don't even ask.
Don't know. And then we were like, maybe that'll turn into a deal where we get on TV. Yeah. She's been in film. She's been in television. She's been offered plays. This woman has done SAC. Yes. But I would talk about that. But the point I'm making is it was during those pit times and respecting that moment that she was able to gain the clarity to see all this has not died.
Right.
Now that this has ended, maybe that was as far as it was meant to run. It's literally about propulsion. That is the whole essence of our life. That's why we wrote a book about it. Yeah. That's why we talk about it. That's what we speak about. That just gave all the force necessary to accelerate these other things, to give them speed, because it has to transfer forward.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
The baton never stops moving.
Yeah. That's right. Especially around the track.
That's I'm hearing this, and I don't want it to sound negative, but it's almost, is there a time, because you could have rebounded and gone back to the Olympics
or tried
I thought about it. Absolutely.
Is there a time where you have to give up one path and take the other?
Next?
Yes.
When is that time?
It's a good question.
It is a great question. I'm gonna see what she comes up with.
Because I'm thinking about like entrepreneurs and leaders out there that have failed, and it's like, I'm gonna try it again, and they fail, and I'm gonna try it again, and we always hear like, never give up, try again, try again. Right. But sometimes
there's a limit.
You have to.
Yes.
Move forward. Right.
Let me go another way.
But you remember in our one of our, and that's what I was going to say, in our shows, and we talked about that, my wife and I talk about our degrees and whatnot, but we have business degrees as well. Mm-hmm. And one strategy that we've learned is called pivot strategy. Right. And I heard a minister talk about it in his terms, but he didn't use pivot strategy. He talked about moving laterally. Mm. A lot of people think because one thing stopped moving forward, that they can't move laterally.
That's right. That's right.
I would rather move laterally than move backward.
Right.
So if I have to leave this thing where it is, go over here to start a new thing, I've started from the point where I last stopped.
That's right.
Gotcha.
So I really am not going backwards. Mm-hmm. I've moved forward with experience, and knowledge, and even that feeling of I ain't doing that again, or that's not the way to go.
And wisdom and learning.
Wisdom, right, and understanding. So you also have insight. So there's a lot that comes with that. So the thing I would say, if I was going to try to take a tackle at this, the moment you see that it is not bringing about the returns that were necessary, one, to survive, better to thrive, or if you're seeing that you're actually in a money pit where it's taking more of an investment than the return from the investment. I'm not talking about self. I'm talking about the actual product, the place or the thing. Right. Or maybe it's not meant for you to go alone, which a lot of people miss.
That's true.
Find a mentor.
A community.
Yep. Go to a think tank. Go to networking events. Find someone that's been there that can say, "Oh, I see your problem." Because a lot of times it's skewed because we have blind spots and we're looking from a vantage point that says, I got it, and we don't.
Right.
So that's what I would say. Yeah. And then I would also say, if it is time to move on, let's say you're hurting yourself, hurting others, you're getting hurt, you're being hurt, then it's time to move on. But just keep in mind, when people say try again, they're not always talking about the same thing.
Right.
You can try a different thing
with that same intensity.
Because you only have to be right once.
Yeah.
And sometimes, bro, just being honest, the reason why we have to give up something is because we're trying to do too much at once.
Right.
Maybe
we're stretching.
You're overstretched beyond your capacity.
Right.
So find something, simplify what you're doing, and then try it. Not that, try it. So Edison could have done a lot of things, but he focused on the light bulb. We talked about this before. When he couldn't get it done, he asked someone to figure it out for him. Mm-hmm. That person came about with the cotton filament, which is why we have electricity today. All right. That was not Benjamin Banneker. I always say his name wrong. I'll find that. I'll look it up. We'll make sure we put that in our next episode.
Gotcha.
But that's what I would say.
Wow. No, it's very interesting to hear a perspective, especially a female perspective, and the way we think about rebounding and rebuilding, and then now knowing an athletic perspective on how
right.
tremendous that whole world is. But my last question to you both. You have had successes in your businesses and failures. What is next?
I want you to tackle that, love. I mean, you're great.
What is next? So this year, we wanted to leave a legacy. We have come from so many trials and tribulations in business that it's kind of like survival mode, or you have the times where you thrive. But what's going to leave legacy?
Yeah.
And our book, helping people far beyond, this is just a self-help book. It's not.
It is not.
This is a transformative. Right. It's all of the juice in who we are, what we've been through, how we've overcome. It's your step-by-step. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the legacy behind that I truly believe is going to help so many lives, and passing that forward, that legacy is vital. Yeah. So that's our business, Aspire Higher. And I believe that the life that we choose to live every single day, and how to make that stronger, how to make sure we're connecting with more people and getting this information out there, it's just legacy to me that matters most right now.
Yeah.
Because we see how fast life can change. Yeah. 2020 again showed us that.
There's a war happening across the world right now.
There's always wars, rumors of wars. There's wars and wars and wars. Yeah. But the inner war is the worst war. Yep. I truly believe. If you're not being hit by a physical bomb, that's one thing.
Yeah, no doubt. Like I said, absolutely. That's pretty bad.
The inner war.
But the inner wars can take you out. No one even knew you were bombed.
Yikes. Absolutely.
Yvana.
Yes.
I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours. Do you have anything you want to add?
I just hope that they hung with us, man. And I hope you see why I'm telling you, this woman is amazing. I know I talk a lot. That's because I get excited. But when she speaks, the whole world stops to listen, because it's so full of wisdom. And I just love hearing her voice and the way she communicates it. So I hope that, we got a lot of viewers staying with us and really checking us out. But please take a look online, AspireHigherLife.com. Aspire, ASPIRE, higher, HIGHER, life, LIFE.com. Yeah. We're here to help.
Absolutely.
And Yvana, where can they reach you at besides your website, your social media?
Yeah, so I am Yvana, YVANA as in Nancy, HB as in boy. So Yvana HB. That's my social media platform.
Okay.
Yes.
So you heard it here first. First woman on our podcast.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you so much. What a queen right here.
Lot.
But again, if you want to reach out to Yvana, if you want to ask her anything, her contact info is right there on the screen. Right. Get in touch with her. Let her know anything, honestly. We're downtown, so we can hear some music.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
But anyway.
They're closing our show out.
Thank you so much for being with us today. The next time you see another woman here, it's going to be me and my wife on the hot seat.
My girl.
So Coach Charles will be taking over the MC opportunity. But anyway, thank you so much for being with us today on another episode of Rebound and Rebuild.
Coach Charles.
And Carlos, the creator.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner is